It was a quiet Sunday morning when Emma sat by her window, the one that overlooked the small park across the street. The trees were bare, their branches trembling against the cold wind, and for a moment she felt the same emptiness in her chest. 7 years. 7 long years since the last time she heard his voice. Yet she still checked her phone every morning, as if his name might appear on the screen, as if time had only paused, not passed. She remembered the day he left, how the rain had soaked through her coat as she stood on the station platform, pretending not to cry. He had promised he'd call. He had sworn that distance wouldn't change anything. But distance has a way of swallowing promises whole. Days turned to weeks, weeks to years, and silence became the only thing that ever arrived. Every season brought her a reason to hope again. A spring breeze that felt like him, a song that carried his voice, a dream where he still said her name. She'd wake up smiling, then realize it was just memory dressed as mercy. Her friends told her to move on, to stop waiting. But how do you move on from someone who never really left? She kept his number saved, never deleted it, never changed hers. She believed that if she held on, even quietly, life might give her one moment of grace. A call, a message, an explanation. Something to tell her that it wasn't all for nothing. The years changed her. She learned to live without expecting much. She worked, she laughed when she could, and on lonely nights she'd still whisper his name like a prayer. But beneath every smile, there was an unfinished story, a sentence that ended too soon. And then one evening, as the sun sank behind the houses, her phone lit up. A number she hadn't seen in years. Her heart stopped for a moment, trembling between disbelief and longing. She stared at the screen, her breath caught halfway through a sob. It was him. After 7 years, it was him. But the call wasn't what she expected. Her hand trembled as she lifted the phone. For a second she forgot how to breathe. It was his number. She remembered every digit like a memory carved into her heart. With a shaking thumb, she answered, her voice barely a whisper, fragile like the silence between two strangers meeting again after a lifetime apart. "Hello," she said. But no one replied. Just a faint crackle, the static hum of distance. Then a voice, deeper, slower than she remembered, finally broke through. "Emma." It was him. Daniel. The man she had once imagined her forever with. The man whose silence had rewritten her life. Tears filled her eyes before words could. For a long moment neither spoke. There was so much between them, years of unanswered questions, unspoken pain, and letters never sent. She wanted to tell him everything. How she waited, how she hated herself for waiting, how she still kept his picture tucked inside her favorite book. But all that came out was a fragile whisper. "Why now, Daniel?" He sighed, a sound that carried both exhaustion and regret. "I don't even know where to begin," he said. "I thought I was doing the right thing by leaving. I thought you'd be better off without me. But not a single day passed that I didn't think of you." Her heart twisted. Those words, the ones she had dreamed of hearing for 7 long years, suddenly didn't bring the comfort she imagined. Instead they ached. Because she could hear it. The sorrow, the weakness. Something in his tone that didn't sound like hope. Sounded like goodbye. "Daniel," she said softly, "why do you sound like that? Are you okay?" He paused. The silence stretched, heavy and trembling. Then his voice broke. "Emma, I'm sorry. I should have called sooner. I thought I had time." Her heart sank. "What do you mean?" "I'm in the hospital," he whispered. "They said I don't have long. I needed you to know. I never stopped loving you." Her world blurred. Everything she had built to survive his absence collapsed in that moment. 7 years of waiting, and when he finally called, it was to say goodbye. For a moment, Emma couldn't move. The room felt smaller, her heart beat louder than her thoughts. She pressed the phone tighter to her ear as if holding him there could somehow stop time. The sound of his breathing, slow, uneven, was enough to shatter her. "Daniel, don't say that," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You're going to be fine. Just tell me where you are, I'm coming." He hesitated. "You don't have to. Please," she interrupted. "Just tell me." A faint sigh. "St. Jude's Hospital, room 307. Before he could say another word, she was already grabbing her keys. Her tears blurred the world around her as she stumbled down the stairs, her heart racing faster than her footsteps. Outside, the sky was gray, heavy with the promise of rain, the same way it had been the day he left. The drive felt endless. Every red light, every turn, every song on the radio reminded her of something they once shared. The diner they loved, the songs they sang out of tune, the plans they made under a sky full of stars. She remembered the way he used to hold her hand as if it was the only truth that ever mattered. And now that same hand might slip away forever. When she reached the hospital, her hands were trembling too hard to fill out the visitor form. The nurse at the desk looked at her with quiet sympathy when she said his name. "Room 307, the nurse repeated softly. "He's been asking for you." Emma's breath caught. She pushed open the door, her heart ready to collapse under the weight of everything unsaid. There he was, pale, fragile, a ghost of the man she remembered. Tubes traced across his arms, machines hummed beside him. But when he saw her, his eyes lit up with something between relief and sorrow. "Emma," he breathed, his lips forming her name as if it was the only word that ever mattered. She walked closer, tears streaming down her cheeks, her voice trembling. "You called," she said. "After all these years, you finally called." He smiled weakly. "I promised I would." For a long moment neither of them spoke. The room was filled with the quiet rhythm of the machines, the steady beep that seemed to count down borrowed time. Emma sat beside him, her hand trembling as she reached for his. His skin was cold, thinner than she remembered, but the warmth of his touch still carried the same comfort it always had. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at him, the man who had once promised her forever, now fading before her. "Why did you leave, Daniel?" she asked softly. "Why did you disappear without a word?" He looked away, his gaze drifting toward the window where the rain had begun to fall. "Because I was scared," he whispered. "Scared of not being enough for you. I lost my job, my father died, and I started drinking. I didn't want you to see me fall apart. I thought, if I let you go, you could have a better life without me dragging you down." Emma shook her head, her voice breaking. "You weren't supposed to decide that for me. You left me with silence, with questions that never stopped echoing. I would have stayed. I would have helped you through it." He closed his eyes, his lashes wet. "I know. And that's why it hurt more. You loved me too purely. I couldn't bear to see pity in your eyes." A single tear rolled down his cheek, tracing the path of years lost between them. Emma wiped it away gently, her fingers trembling. "I never pitied you, Daniel," she said. "I loved you, through every broken promise, through every silent year. I never stopped." He turned to her, his eyes glistening. "I used to replay your voice in my head every night. I thought maybe one day I'd be strong enough to face you again. I just didn't think that day would come like this." She leaned closer, pressing her forehead to his. "We can still have this moment," she whispered. "Even if it's all that's left." He smiled weakly. "You waited for me," he murmured. "I always would," she replied. Outside, thunder rolled softly in the distance. The rain tapped against the glass like quiet applause for two souls who had finally found their way back to each other even if time had already decided their ending. The rain grew heavier outside, painting the windows with silver trails of memory. Inside the room, time felt still, as if the world had quietly stepped aside to let them have their final moment in peace. Daniel's breathing was shallow now, his voice barely strong enough to rise above the hum of the monitors. Yet every word he spoke carried the weight of 7 silent years. "Emma," he whispered, his eyes fixed on hers, "there's something I need you to know." She held his hand tighter, afraid to let go. "I'm here," she said softly. "You can tell me anything." "I never stopped loving you," he said. "Not for a single day. Every birthday, every Christmas, every morning I woke up wishing I could call you. But I thought if I stayed away, maybe you'd find someone who could love you better." Emma shook her head, tears spilling freely. "There was no one else, Daniel. There couldn't be. You never left my heart, even when I tried to make you." He smiled faintly, that familiar half-smile she once fell in love with. "Then I guess love really does last longer than time," he murmured. "Promise me something, Emma. Promise me you won't keep waiting after today. Life, travel, laugh again. Don't let my absence steal any more of your years." She wanted to argue, to tell him that she didn't know how to live in a world without him, but the look in his eyes silenced her. It was calm, the look of a man who had finally found peace after carrying guilt for too long. "I promise," she whispered. He exhaled softly, his hand relaxing in hers. "Thank you," he said. "You were the best chapter of my life." And with that, his eyes slowly closed. The machines continued their rhythmic hum until one by one, they began to quiet. Emma sat frozen, her tears falling onto his hand as she held it against her heart. Outside, the storm began to ease. The first light of morning broke through the clouds, gentle and forgiving. Emma stood, kissed his forehead and whispered, "You were my favorite chapter too." When she stepped outside, the world looked different. Quieter but somehow softer. She took a deep breath, the air heavy with rain and memory. For the first time in years, she didn't check her phone. She simply looked at the sky, smiled through her tears and walked forward, not because she stopped loving him, but because she finally understood what it meant to keep living for the love that never truly ends.